was watching the footage of Chairman Fred, and I was moved by it. I was just moved by the stuff I was watching, and I was like, I just want to be able to move someone else when they watch me do it in the same way. And so I feel like I'm inhabiting the same like energy position, essentially.
I wanted to ask you, Shaka, when it came to creating the film, you have mentioned that one of the first things that led you into creating this was the fact that you read Chairman Fred's words or took in his public speaking. But I wanted to know, like, what was that initial feeling, of the first thing that you felt?
When I read his words.
Yeah.
I just, to be honest, I have a very kind of specific sense of humor, and I also am a real fan of like wry humor and satire in a lot of ways. And even though what he wasn't saying was satirical, it was so biting. It was so funny to me. I thought that what he said was so intelligent and witty and funny. And the funniest stuff is often the truest stuff. That's why you have your Dave Chappelle's and Richard Pryors of the world who aren't just comedians but sages. And Fred Hampton was a tremendous orator, but he was also just an incredible humorist. And so that was one thing that like struck me immediately.
It's funny, I feel like probably we're all quite surprised and thinking that, the humor was what sort of drew you in. But that's great, because I can see that now. I understand what you're talking about. I wanted to ask you, Charles, when it came to teaming up with Shaka, teaming up with Ryan and the cast, what was really important to you to enable everyone to embody who they were portraying, physically, emotionally? Did you give them a reading list? Were there things to watch?
Well, I was invited on the journey by Shaka and Ryan. So Shaka and Ryan have a long history relationship, going back to when their films first premiered at Sundance, their first films. And then Ryan, after the success of Black Panther, we were talking about Ryan launching this company, and he said, "Hey, I want to tell this incredible story about Fred Hampton, and I'd be interested in seeing if your company Macro would want to partner with us in doing it." And so, given that all three of us are not only filmmakers and storytellers, but we're also people that care about community activists, I jumped at the opportunity and loved the script. In terms of a reading list, Shaka really is about as well read as anyone I've ever met on anything to do with the movement, and Chairman Fred Hampton, and I know that he had a long list that he shared with our brilliant cast, and he can kind of share more about that. But I know that they went very in depth on their character studies, which I think added to the work, the reading list that Shaka had given them, and they could expound upon it. But it's incredible the lengths that they went to in the research on their own to really prepare for those roles.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. To piggyback off of what Charles said, like, I've done a substantial amount of research, as did my co-writer Will Burson, and so we submitted, we gave them sort of a number of texts and articles to take a look at. But I'll give two examples. One, I'll never forget, the actual William O'Neill interview that you see in the movie. There was a transcript of it that I was, had damn near memorized, but it was really tough to get our hands on the actual footage. You know who got us the actual footage? Lakeith got us the actual footage. So, and then, Daniel can talk about, the own reading that he did on his own, because, I gave him a list of books I read, and he said, okay, this is great. I've read these, but I want to know what the actual Panther reading list is that they read. So, Daniel can speak to that a little bit more.
What did you take in, Daniel? What was it?
Chairman Mao, Marcus Garvey, Franz Fanon, just what they were, the ideologies and the philosophies and the concepts that they were reading at that time. Just and from far and wide, it was just such a diverse, in terms of nationalities and where it was like, I've read so much. I just read so much. I read dissertations about the Illinois chapter that really gave me an amazing insight of that time and the gang culture of that time, and how that was how that kind of threaded through what the Panther Party was doing, and especially that's a huge thread of Chairman Fred in the film, and him uniting all these different factions. And so I just read it. For me, I wanted to kind of understand the mindset and the thinking and the beliefs before I approached him as an individual. So I go, oh, okay, cool. So then you're and it just by osmosis, you're not being aware, you're just more alert to, oh yeah, that means this and that means that. So then you just carry yourself a bit differently. And because you need to have 6 weeks of education before you become a fully fledged Panther, and read all the stuff. So I just thought I just did it myself.
Wow, deep. I feel like, how long did it take you to kind of like feel that you became Fred Hampton?
There was a time when I was like, oh wow, I went to Chicago. I took myself to Chicago. I stepped there for a week, and it was kind of like really focused time on just like focusing on Fred. It was the first time I really focused on Fred and really took that in. And then it was just kind of like, wow, this is a huge mountain. And I kind of got a hint of it because me and Shaka did like an intensive week, like a year before we shot, and he gave me the speeches and he recorded some footage, and I just like basically performed the speeches to like, it was like 3 or 4 of us, and just did the speeches and played around and workshopped. And then, but it was kind of like me and Audrey Lacrone, my dialect coach, and we just kind of just drilled it. And I don't know, I just feel all I was reaching for was basically like, I was watching the footage of Chairman Fred, and I was moved by it. I was just moved by the stuff I was watching. And I was like, I just want to be able to move someone else when they watch me do it in the same way. And so I feel like I'm inhabiting the same like energy position, essentially.
Yeah. There are some scenes actually where you can see that, like, there's so many different things that I've picked out from watching the film, but specifically with you, Dominique, there are 2 scenes that I feel like bookmark the beginning of Fred and Deborah's journey, and also the end. And the first one is when she's with Child and she's watching him speak, and she's emotional, physically crying. And the next one is towards the end of the film. I don't want to, obviously, I hope everyone's watched it. That's in here, but no spoilers. It's just your face, and it is pure emotion. Was that, in that moment, how did you feel? Because I felt like, I was like, I could feel it. I felt like I cried a few times in the film. But.
Interestingly enough, like I remember talking to Shaka a lot about this, but I said my main mission going into this is that I want to be able to love, like how does the sacrificial gesture that she does in the end get there? How does a person get there? How do I love somebody so much that I can get there? So really it was just kind of looking at Chairman Fred, like what do I notice about him? Oh, I notice obviously the way he speaks, the way he compels people, but also his dimples. Oh, does Daniel have dimples? So I start watching Daniel take up space in different ways. And so by that time, by the end, I felt like it was like the night before we were gonna film this, and my heart was pounding so hard and I had knots in my stomach, and I'm in a hotel room and I'm thinking like, what's wrong? And then I realized that my body couldn't tell the difference between that I was acting versus what it believed, because we had gotten so deep in it together. And that was what I asked for. I prayed about that. I said, can I be a vessel? Can I get to that part? Can I represent this love in that way? And so by that time, it was like I have to actually allow myself to mourn the loss, because it is a loss. Even though I kept telling myself like, Daniel's gonna be okay tomorrow. It's not going to happen. He's going to still be here. But we had a bubble together in Cleveland. We're not going to be like, even now, look at us, we're not even together. You know what I mean? So it was kind of mourning that loss of what we represented, the love that we represented.